Quick disclaimer, information in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended to be treated as medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare team before making changes to your diet, lifestyle, supplementation, or medication.
With over 50 different types of sugars available, along with crazy news headlines and all the misinformation across the Wild West web, you might be completely confused about what sweeteners are safe. Let's dive in to explore options to help clear up any confusions.
Welcome to Type 2 Diabetes Talk, the place where we chat about what really works to treat type 2 diabetes and prediabetes naturally with nutrition and lifestyle. If you're looking to optimize blood sugar and A1C, lose weight, reduce medications, and improve your overall health, this is the place to be. Now, here's your host, Type 2 Diabetes Nutrition Specialist, Dr. Jetta.
Hello there and welcome to episode 49. There are numerous types of sugars and sugar substitutes used in food products, including natural sugars like white sugar, brown sugar, and honey, different syrups like maple syrup, corn syrup, agave, and rice syrup, other types of sugar like coconut sugar or palm sugar, natural sweeteners like stevia, monk fruit extract, and erythritol, and artificial sweeteners like aspartame, saccharum, and sucralose. Yes, it can all get a bit confusing when there are over 50 different types of sugars and sugar substitutes available. Of course, some we see more in food products like maltodextrin or high fructose corn syrup. Others are readily available to us, such as white or brown sugar or stevia and erythritol. So today, we're tackling this topic that's on lots of people's minds: safe diabetes sweeteners and sugar substitutes. And in our usual fashion here on Type 2 Diabetes Talk and over at DMP, it's evidence over opinion. We'll be investigating what the research has to say on all these sugars and sweeteners. You can head down to our website at type2diabetestalk.com to review some of the info we cover today. And if you're one of our members, you can find a newly updated and detailed sugar substitutes guide inside the members site. Find that in the food guides or alongside episode 49. You know, we all love sweets from time to time. It's just human nature. Unfortunately, though, sugar is easy to overconsume, and in today's modern world, sugar is found in the majority of packaged food products. That really doesn't help us with sugars being highly addictive in their appeal. In fact, Dr. Eric Stice, a neuroscientist, has done some very interesting studies showing that the same addiction receptors are activated when we consume sugar as if we were to consume cocaine. Yes, that's shocking, but actually true, which explains why it may be so hard to moderate sugar intake. Although we might like sugar, for the most part, sugar is best to cut out of our diet as much as possible. Why? The main reason is that sugar provides zero nutritional value. Sugar has no vitamins, no minerals, or other beneficial nutrients. It's just empty calories, and lots of evidence shows us that added sugar contributes to weight gain, fatty liver, and the development of various health conditions. Obviously, with any of us, sugar leads to sharp rises in blood sugar levels, and in diabetes, this is clearly an issue. But sugar also triggers systemic inflammation, changes gut bacteria, among other things. Again, sugar provides zero nutritional value. So reducing sugar intake isn't just about controlling blood sugar levels, it's also about protecting your liver and your overall metabolic health and function. When we compare different sugars, white sugar is obviously the worst, being highly refined. But brown or raw sugar are still made up of the same. They just maintain some of the natural molasses that gives them the brown colouring and a different flavour. And whether it's white, raw or brown, these all contain roughly 12 to 13 grams of carbs per tablespoon and 45 to 50 calories. Honey, molasses and maple syrup, although natural, all contain roughly 13 to 17 grams carbs per tablespoon and 45 to 70 calories. Similarly, Manuka honey, although known for its medicinal properties, still contains 17 grams carbs per tablespoon and around 50 calories. These days we have many sweeteners available to us as well that are substitutes for sugar, and many of these have 0 carbs and 0 calories. So what's the best option for blood sugar levels and health? That's a great question. Let's start with whether it might be okay to have small amounts of natural sugars like raw sugar, honey, coconut sugar, or brown rice syrup, for example. You might also consider certain factors like coconut sugar has a lower glycemic index than regular sugar. However, it still contains the same amount of carbs, around 12 grams, and the same calories, around 45, as those ones we just explained. Brown rice syrup may seem like a better option too because, again, it has a lower glycemic index and less calories. But again, the carbs are around 15 grams per tablespoon. If you were to choose foods or include these natural sugars, moderation is certainly key, as you'd have to be aware of their impact on your blood sugar levels. That's really going to be your biggest concern. We know that sugar impacts blood sugar levels directly. And clearly, it's going to be of little benefit for your health if you're eating too many sweet treats containing sugar, honey or maple syrup, natural or not. Does that make them completely off limits? Well, no. We don't like to say you can't have anything or should take one pathway only, because it's always a matter of choices. And also, consistency is more important than perfection. So if you were at a birthday celebration and you wanted to enjoy a piece of cake with your grandson, then go for it, I say. As I said, it's always a matter of choices, and consistency is more important than perfection. So if the option isn't sugar itself, you might be basing your decision on the wide range of sweeteners available: artificial sweeteners, stevia, monk fruit, or sugar alcohols. These may seem ideal because they provide 0 calories and 0 carbs. But there is a bit more to the story here too, so let's dive in and explore them in more detail. Let's look closer at some of the artificial sweeteners like aspartame, saccharin, and ACE-K. These were the only type of sugar substitutes that used to be available. They were initially brought onto the market as a 0 carb, 0 calorie option with the thought that they would help consumers deal with the growing rates of obesity. Fast forward until now, and unfortunately, there's quite a bit of research that shows they may contribute to weight gain and other health issues. Aspartame, for instance, has had lots of FDA complaints and has been linked to headaches, depression, and even more serious health issues in some studies. In 2023, there were reviews done over aspartame safety, and overall the conclusion was there is limited data. There just hasn't been enough studies to show the health effects, negative or positive. But being these products have been on the market so long, we'd expect more safety data would have been explored, but that's not the case. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has more recently classified aspartame as a potential carcinogen to humans, meaning a potential for cancer. So clearly, that's not a good thing. And that was for aspartame, the artificial sweetener. Saccharin, another artificial sweetener, was once banned due to cancer concerns, and it is still controversial despite being deemed safe for consumption and still used in products. ACE-K has also been associated with potential health risks, including disruptions in metabolic processes. Sucralose is another artificial sweetener used in many products. it was once considered safer to eat than aspartame and other artificial sweeteners. However, more recent research has shown it can negatively affect gut bacteria, and it might have cumulative effects that actually disrupt glucose metabolism. And for all these artificial sweeteners, there is some research showing they may increase blood glucose levels, promote atherosclerosis, and increase risk for heart disease. From the research we've looked at over the years, we don't generally recommend artificial sweeteners. If you can avoid them altogether, that's probably a good idea, although if you're somewhere with sugar-free foods available, some of them may contain these artificial sweeteners because they are very commonly used in food products. But if you had a choice, sucralose would be a much better option than aspartame, ACE-K or saccharin. Just to make a note about food labels, when you're looking on the back of the food product at a product ingredient list, sometimes a label might just say sweetener with a number in brackets. The artificial sweeteners are listed as 950, 951, 954 and 955. 950 is ACE-K, 951 is aspartame, 954 is saccharin, and 955 is sucralose. So that's the better one.
Get proven, practical support to lower blood sugar, weight, and medication. Check out Dr. Jetta's programs and services at type2diabetestalk.com/programs.
So far we've talked about natural sugars and syrups and artificial sweeteners. So what other options are there? Well, the next type of sweetener we have are the tols: erythritol, xylitol, maltitol, and several other tols. These are all sugar alcohols, also known as polyols, and they're a type of carbohydrate that chemically have characteristics of both sugars and alcohols. But despite their name, sugar alcohol, they don't contain ethanol and they are not actually an alcohol. Sugar alcohols can naturally be found in small amounts in fruits and vegetables, but for commercial production, they're most commonly produced by chemically converting sugars, which allows them to be widely used in sugar-free and reduced sugar products. Two of the most common sugar alcohols are xylitol and erythritol. Sugar alcohols like erythritol and xylitol don't significantly impact blood sugar levels. However, be aware that they can cause digestive issues in some people, xylitol particularly being worse. And just be aware that xylitol can be toxic to pets, especially dogs, so it should be used with caution if you have animals around the house. Erythritol is often found in combination with other sweeteners like stevia, which can make it easier to use in baking and other recipes. And I want to highlight that there were some sensational headlines and controversial reports around erythritol increasing heart disease and stroke. So if you look around the Wild West web, you're going to see some of these crazy headlines. But the headlines, they weren't ever based on strong or founded evidence, but instead have been misinterpreted. It's really led to a lot of confusion about erythritol safety. I've since seen all sorts of things, actually heard all sorts of things, with some people even saying they've read research that it's a neurotoxin, which, based on my knowledge and the research that I've done extensively, there certainly is no evidence to suggest that at all. Backtracking to those headlines that occurred that have caused all this confusion, the controversial study that led to all this mess suggested that high blood levels of erythritol were associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular events. However, this study did not account for dietary intake of erythritol and only measured blood levels of erythritol, which are produced naturally in the body. And that's an interesting thing to note. The body naturally produces erythritol. Previous studies have recognised that erythritol may be a predictor biomarker of cardiometabolic diseases. And being a predictive marker means researchers have recognised that for some reason, erythritol in the blood appears to increase before a cardiac event. But the appearance of erythritol in the blood before a cardiac event doesn't mean that erythritol is causing the event. And again, we're not talking about dietary intake of erythritol here, but naturally produced blood levels of erythritol. And what this suggests is that the body can amplify its own natural production of erythritol under certain circumstances. And research shows this is certainly true. For example, under oxidative stress is one thing that it can increase under. Therefore, it's really important not to jump to conclusions based on this study that didn't even examine dietary intake of erythritol, only blood levels of erythritol. Now, the same group of researchers released another study recently, which again generated sensational clickbait news headlines that erythritol causes stroke. Again, this study had many flaws. It was a very small study of only 20 healthy participants, where the two groups of 10 people consumed either erythritol or glucose. The researchers looked at the participants' blood samples, testing them before and 30 minutes after consuming either erythritol or glucose. The researchers then induced platelet reactivity, or in other words, the ability of the blood to clot. Yes, we do know that blood clots can potentially lead to heart attacks and strokes, but it's important to note that platelet reactivity alone doesn't always lead to thrombotic events. Other factors such as vascular health, inflammation and blood flow also play a role in determining whether a clot will form. There are lots of natural factors in our bodies that determine these factors. And one of the major limitations of research was that they only studied the effects within 15 minutes of exposure to erythritol, because it's well known that erythritol is rapidly absorbed, and the large body of evidence shows it is also largely excreted from the body. It may be that blood levels or erythritol rise and platelets aggregate and then dissipate shortly after. That is an unknown factor, as they didn't study longer-term outcomes. Another limitation is the possibility for residual confounding by unknown factors, which the authors declared themselves in their published manuscript. There have been no intervention studies that have examined the effects of these sweeteners on stroke specifically. So essentially, the claims made by these researchers so far remain speculative and extremely preliminary in nature. But despite these facts, essentially what's happened here is the average consumer now has a definitive opinion that erythritol causes heart attacks, strokes and blood clots. And when people go and search the Wild West Web, they're going to see reports about this absolutely everywhere. The major problem again with these media outlets and these sensational headlines is they exaggerate the outcome, making statements that are so definitive when that's simply not the case. While we can keep watching the evidence unfold as more studies arise, at this stage, the large body of evidence available suggests that erythritol is perfectly safe to consume. Studies have shown that erythritol is absorbed into the bloodstream and then excreted in the urine without being metabolised. Some studies have shown it to have antioxidant properties, which can help reduce oxidative stress and inflammation. Anyway, at this stage, there is no robust data to say erythritol isn't safe. Another thing to keep in mind as well is that some sugar alcohols can still spike blood sugar, not in everyone, but this is more common with maltitol, polyglycitol, isomalt, sorbitol and xylitol. Now, all of that said, if you want to exercise caution and avoid sugar alcohols, then go ahead. That is your choice, as there are other sugar substitutes to choose from. Before we move on to discuss the best natural sugar substitutes, let's hear a testimonial from one of our members.
Tony said, my A1C was around 7.5, but I wasn't doing any work myself. Instead, I was letting the medication I was taking do the heavy lifting, metformin and glipizide. After after looking after myself, I have been able to get my A1C back down to 6.5 and have sustained this for a number of months now. My morning numbers have gone from the 160s to the 120s, 8.9 to 6.7. And I have also managed to lose 30 pounds, 13.6 kilograms. So much valuable information. DMP is a lifesaver.
Beyond the sugar alcohols, we have monk fruit and stevia, with stevia being used more frequently than monk fruit. Stevia comes in both powder and liquid form. Monk fruit is mainly a powder. There's been a lot of research on stevia, being it has grown in popularity and is used in many food products now. And overall, the evidence suggests it's very safe with no carcinogenic or genotoxic effects. When stevia was compared with sugar, it's been shown to regulate appetite, with less food being consumed throughout the day as opposed to sugar. Stevia causes no glycemic response, and it's also been shown to reduce blood sugar levels at 20 and 30 minutes post-meal compared to sugar. Stevia has been shown to increase insulin sensitivity. And according to research, actually, stevia possesses interesting medicinal activities, including anti-diabetic, anti-hypertensive, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-cancer, and anti-diarrheal activity. Again, according to research, more of the benefits of stevia are that it stimulates glucagon-like peptide 1, the GLP-1 hormone. It reduces oxidative stress. It can help to regulate lipid metabolism, which can be beneficial for cholesterol, and stevia doesn't affect gut bacteria negatively. Overall, stevia has a lot of research backing it and the strongest evidence for safety and benefits. While we might not have heard of it until recently, immigration brought monk fruit to the US in the 1940s, so it's been around for a long time. Research on monk fruit shows it may help regulate blood sugar and has antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. There certainly isn't as much research on monk fruit as there is for stevia, but there doesn't seem to be any negative impacts out of all the research we've read, so it's certainly another suitable option. One last sweetener, one that is newer on the market, is allulose. Allulose is a rare sugar with almost 0 calories. It's found in very small amounts in some fruits like figs, maple syrup, and raisins. In recent years, though, researchers have found a new way to manufacture it. Using enzymatic processes, studies report it has been synthesized from sucralose, Jerusalem artichoke, inulin, wheat, and fruit and vegetable residues. Some online sources have said it's made from corn, and some people proclaim it's made from GMO corn and all these sensational things again. But based on quite an extensive amount of research, one company producing it reported using corn to synthesize allulose, but they synthesized their allulose from non-GMO corn. Aside from that, I couldn't find any report in the scientific literature of corn being used to synthesize allulose, other than an experiment to use corn stalks to produce it as a method to use the massive biomass left from corn. Since allulose can now be produced on a much larger scale, it has now become more readily available, and it certainly could be an option you consider, as the research surrounding it looks very promising. And subsequently, allulose has been investigated for its potential benefits for T2 and prediabetes. And this is a very interesting one, this sweetener. Studies have actually shown it lowers postprandial blood sugar levels. That's your after-meal blood sugar levels. What's interesting about that is there are not many foods that actually lower postprandial blood sugar levels when the same meals are consumed. Let's take a closer look at these study outcomes so we can understand this a bit better. So in a systematic review that looked at the effects of postprandial glucose when healthy adults added 5 or 10 grams of allulose to a carbohydrate-containing meal, the same carbohydrate-containing meal, they found that those taking the allulose had lower after-meal glucose levels. In another small study with type 2 diabetes, the allulose meal reduced after-meal glucose by 80 milligrams per decilitre or 1 millimoles per litre. Another single-arm trial found a reduction of 32 milligrams per decilitre or 1.8 millimoles for fasting blood sugar when people had allulose each morning for 8 weeks, along with improvements in A1C and insulin resistance. But the results that I've looked at are mixed, as another more rigorous randomised control trial found that allulose had no effect on glucose levels in healthy people. There have been various studies in animals showing allulose reduced liver inflammation, lowered insulin resistance, and slowed down the progression of diabetic nephropathy, that's a kidney issue. Other animal studies have shown allulose stimulates GLP-1, leading to appetite reduction and lower food intake, along with improving glucose tolerance. According to research, when allulose is ingested, 70% of it is absorbed in the small intestine with some fermentation from the intestinal bacteria. The other 30% is excreted in our poop. And the absorbed allulose isn't metabolised in the body, but is later excreted in the urine. One of the main advantages of allulose is that it tastes more like regular sugar. So for those that can't stand the taste of any naturally derived substitutes like stevia or monk fruit, then maybe allulose is the option for you. So overall, the research here is very interesting, and we'll be keeping an eye on developments. Allulose certainly hasn't had the extensive research that something like stevia has, but with the potential benefits of lowering postprandial levels, and it is considered safe, it's definitely a sweetener worth considering. And if you look around, it is now readily available at most grocery stores like Walmart and on Amazon, etc. And it's often used in combination products with other sweeteners like stevia and erythritol. So with all that said, what is the best and safest sweetener? Considering the evidence, the most suitable sugar substitutes are stevia and monk fruit, and the newly available allulose. These are unlikely to have any impact on blood sugar levels, and at least stevia and monk fruit may offer several health benefits. Allulose may also help to lower postprandial levels. There are also some suitable syrups and sugar-free honeys available on the market that use a combination of monk fruit, stevia, and allulose along with natural flavours, herbs and spices. Some of these may be suitable for you. Just keep in mind to always check the ingredients labels to ensure what is in the product. Consuming natural sugars in very small quantities on occasion is also a suitable option, but keeping in mind that they will have an impact on blood sugar levels, raising them by a certain degree. If you need to use an artificial sweetener or you're choosing a product with an artificial sweetener, sucralose is the best choice over others like aspartame or saccharin. However, it's still better to opt for more natural alternatives when possible, the stevia, monk fruit, allulose, for example. Overall, it may also come down to your personal taste and preferences, the ones you prefer the taste of compared to others, for example. And that's fine too. As I said, always remember to read the nutrition facts labels and consider the ingredients in a product so you can make the best choice for you. If you're a sweet tooth kind of person, overall, if you can focus on reducing your intake of sweets for other food options, this will have multiple benefits for your health and reduce your intake of added sugar and sugar substitutes as well, because overall we don't want to be consuming too much of either of these. We want to be focusing on fresh, whole foods as our primary food source for the majority of the day. If sugar cravings are an issue, listen to episode 8, where we covered 7 effective ways to tame sugar cravings, which has some very fantastic tips for you to use and includes one very effective supplement that you can take that really wards off sugar cravings. I hope you found this information useful today. Remember, you can head down to our website at type2diabetestalk.com to review some of the info we cover today. And if you're one of our members, you can find a newly updated and detailed sugar substitutes guide inside the members site. Find that in the food guides or alongside episode 49. Thank you for joining me today. If you did find this episode helpful, please share it with others and take time to leave a 5-star rating and review to help the podcast reach more people who can benefit from this valuable information. That's all from me today. Stay healthy and sweeten your life wisely. Dr. Jetta, over and out.
Thanks for tuning in to Type 2 Diabetes Talk. Please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. And for episode replays, episode notes, and more, visit type2diabetestalk.com. New episodes are available Tuesdays, 10 a.m. US Eastern Time, or your time zone equivalent. Thanks again. We're truly grateful to be a part of your life and help make a real difference.